Welcome everyone to this latest episode of the Lofi Podcast. Today my guest is Kanyun Lofi. Welcome.
Hey guys, how you doing? Happy people get to learn how to say the name Kanyun. I hear a lot of people say it in weird ways, but yes, that is how you say it. Super happy to be here today. We love what you guys are doing over at the Lofi Podcast and are more than happy to spend some time being a part of the cause.
Hey man, thank you so much. It's really appreciating that you're able to just take some time out of your busy schedule just to have this short discussion. You just mentioned your name there, Kanyun, and people aren't pronouncing it correctly. Could you give us a little bit of history behind where this name came from?
Yeah, it's pretty simple actually. I love to spend time in nature and travel and go on hikes and stuff like that. So I love mountains. I'm a huge mountain fanatic. So I took the name Kanyun because it's kind of related, and I just kind of spelled it wrong on purpose, and I thought it was cool.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I'm guessing that like hiking and nature is like one of the things you like to do outside of music.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd say travel in general and just experience different cultures and different countries, and nature is just a big part of that. So yeah.
Yeah, I know it's amazing being able to get around places and see different parts of the world and where different people are coming from. Before we get a little bit more into music and things like that, could you just tell us a bit about yourself outside of production, a little bit about who you are, and what hobbies do you have besides what we just mentioned in nature?
Absolutely. Well, I can definitely say for sure that I am a human.
Mm-hmm. Happy to hear that, man. Happy to hear.
But I mean, I'm a son. I'm a husband. During the day, I'm a teacher. That's kind of my normal job, my daily job. Not many people know this, but I run the autism program at a school in an impoverished area. That's kind of my normal week's work. And I like to think that my purpose in life is sort of multifaceted. Like I wake up in the morning and my purpose is to dedicate my day to being an advocate for kids who really need an advocate in their corner. And creating music is where I find my solace. It gives me room to sort of reflect and process and endure, like the things that I had to endure during the day, because it can be a very mentally and emotionally challenging job. And so I kind of need that musical time, even though it's hard to find it. I know we all have to work and we all have to survive, but it's a necessary part of my day to help me show up as a better husband, as a better teacher, as a better friend, and just find more value and purpose in my life. You asked things I like to do. So, I mean, like I said before, I love to travel and see the world, eat foods, consume music and art from different countries, cultures, or even just states and cities here in the U.S. My wife and I are super into public transit. On our honeymoon in Scandinavia, we got to do all this super high tech and high efficiency public transit, and we were just geeking out about it. So that's another thing that we're into.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And especially what you just mentioned about your day job. Like I truly have a heart for autistic children, because I find that society in a way sometimes rejects them and they don't get the attention and help that they really deserve. And so, yeah, what you're doing is really beautiful. So yeah, thank you for your part.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's an adventure, but I would say it's definitely worth it, man.
So yeah, we've talked a little bit about you as a person outside of music. I'm happy to hear that you're a human as well.
You never know these days, man.
Yeah. So, but how did you get into music? Like, how did your musical journey start, and this eventually lead into music production?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, music has been a big part of my life, kind of from the very beginning. My dad put a guitar in my hands when I was maybe 7 years old. He taught me a few basic chords, and that sort of was the prehistoric instillment of the passion. But really, I just used to sit around and listen to music with my dad in the 90s and all the grunge bands that were on the radio. And so I like to think that I sort of found all of this because of my dad. It stayed with me. When I got to middle school, I joined the school band, and that's where I picked up the trumpet. That's been a big part of my life all the way through high school and even into some college. I got into competitive marching band, which is a big part of my life, and that helped instill discipline, performance, musicality, had a huge impact on me. And in high school, I was actually in like a local metal band with my friends. We were super into that stuff. And we would play shows in our city and sometimes outside of our city. And that's kind of where writing original music really kind of came into the picture for the first time, high school. And then when we would go to the studio to record our songs and our EPs and stuff, I got to see what the studio process was like and the engineering process. And I was just totally enthralled by it. And I found myself asking the engineer like all kinds of questions like, why did we use this microphone for this application? And you know, what are you clicking around on here while we're tracking and while you're mixing? And I was just constantly asking questions and trying to absorb everything I could. So that's when I really knew I was like, okay, this is something I could really enjoy. And then at the same time, I started exploring another side of music. I grew up in the southern United States where hip hop and rap and trap music is sort of a cultural icon and a big part of where we come from. And so I grew up with that stuff. And one day I decided, man, I really want to start making beats. I love like the heavy 808s and the, you know, these beats. And so I downloaded a copy of FL Studio and decided I was going to make beats. This is back when they called it Fruity Loops, for those who know. And that was my first real dive into working in a DAW.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting journey you've been through because you were experiencing many different genres of music. Like you mentioned that you were playing the trumpet, so like in a brass band, and then you did metal as well, and also you made trap. So you had all of these different genres of music that influenced you as you went along. So that's really fascinating to hear.
Yeah.
So you then started working with Fruity Loops, FL Studio, as it's called now. So did you stick with this DAW? And like what kind of gear, DAW and plugins are you using now in your production?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's crazy to say, but 12 years later, I still use FL Studio for a lot of my stuff. I just know the workflow so well, like in and out, all the keyboard shortcuts. I mean, it's just like I'm speaking a language. You know what I mean? When I use it, I did recently download Ableton, and I've been kind of dragging my feet a little bit. But I think with the way my sessions are getting more complex and more nuanced, and I'm starting to think that maybe a transition would open up a lot of possibilities for me in terms of DAW. In terms of DAW.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I've mentioned this before on previous episodes of the podcast. It's like it doesn't really matter what DAW you use as long as it's the DAW that gets you to get these creative ideas out of your head as a project and so that people can hear them. You mentioned that you know all the different shortcuts in Fruity Loops, and for me, that's logic. Like I'm so used to all the different shortcuts. But if I opened up FL Studio in front of me right after we finished this call, I would have no idea what to do, you know? So it's really the DAW is sort of a means to an end whenever we're getting these musical ideas out of our heads onto a screen.
It's like a middleman. That's so, and you know, that's just the DAW. I mean, in terms of gear, I love Arturia. Are you familiar with Arturia?
Yeah, I've heard of them indeed.
Yeah, phenomenal MIDI controllers at a great price point. I use the Yamaha HS series monitors. They're so honest and so flat that if you can make a mix sound good on it, it's probably a decent mix. I would say, let's see. I use the Focusrite Scarlett 18i20. So like think about the 2-channel one that everybody owns at some point in their lives, and it's like it's got 8 inputs for XLR, so I could like mic up almost a whole group of people in here at one time, and it's got like talkback monitoring. So I highly recommend it. That's a super underrated piece of gear for sure. I get stoked about gear. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Like I'm a bit of a gearhead as well too. So I love whenever people talk about gear and I can just sort of imagine their setup. So like, do you think that the gear that you've chosen has really influenced you in the way that you produce your music?
Yeah, I think so. You know, like if I was telling like somebody who was brand new and was like me when I wanted to like download a copy of Fruity Loops, we're gonna keep calling it Fruity Loops just because it's
As it should be.
I would say all they need is a laptop and a you know in a DAW and just click around and figure yourself out. Maybe a MIDI controller, like. But you know, this has been going on for a really long time. So I think every time I get a new piece of gear, it's because I feel like it can harness a new idea a different way, or whether it's a delay pedal or a reverb pedal, or you know, they all play a big part in the creation process for me.
Yeah, no, I don't know if you're familiar with the YouTube channel Andrew Masters.
Oh, he's so good, dude.
I know, absolutely. But whenever I see his studio tours and I think, wow, I'm so jealous. I wish I had all of this gear. But then you realize that this stuff's been built up over years. You know,
Yes.
the stuff wasn't all bought in a day. So, like, as you said, for producers who are just looking to start out, a laptop, a good DAW, a MIDI controller, and maybe a decent pair of headphones,
Yeah.
that's enough to get you started, man.
It may be an interface if you play guitar, you know, or like do some vocals, but that's really it, man. There's a lot of people in our scene who are making some really awesome tracks with just that.
Yeah, because I mean, I look around my room right now and see this gear, and whenever I come to think of it, the two pieces of gear that I use every day are my MIDI controller and my audio interface. I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. Everything else is just little add-ons that make life a little bit easier.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
And so we've talked DAW, we've talked gear. What about plugins and things like that? You know.
Oh man. Oh man. Anything made by Universal Audio. I hate to be the guy to say that because they're not cheap, but man, you get what you pay for. A lot. Those baby audio plugins are really sweet too. They've got that smooth operator is sweet. And Soothe 2, that's almost become like a way of life for me. Like, I don't know if I could survive without Soothe 2 at this point. Yeah, that probably sums it up. I even still use some of the stock like DAWs in my, or stock plugins in my DAW, man. I've been using FL Reverb 2 for years.
Yeah, no, you mentioned Baby Audio, and even not just their paid plugins, some of their free ones I use on nearly every project.
What's that? Don't they have that Magic Dice?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. I use it on everything. It's so good.
I love that you could just click and it's like, no, not that one. No, not that one. Oh, that's the spot. Like you could just, it's like you don't have to spend so much time turning dials and stuff. It just gets instant inspiration going.
Yeah, I know. It just, you've got that perfect amount of reverb and delay just in that one plugin. I love it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So, but it's, yeah, and it goes back to what we just said about, you know, being simple with producing music, because you said you use some stock plugins. I live off stock plugins in Logic too. Like a lot of those things, they're really good. Like for simple EQ and things like that, I never go to any fancy plugins for that.
Yeah, man. I use the FL Parametric EQ. Works just fine, man.
Does what it's meant to do. It does what it says in the box. Yeah. So you started producing using Fruity Loops. And so you said that this production started because you wanted to make beats, like with the hip hop culture and trap beats and things like that was around. So how did lo-fi then come into this? You know, what drew you to the genre?
So here comes an interesting transition. So, you know, I learned how to make rap beats. I spent a few years doing that, and once I got to a certain level, you know, I had a few friends that I would collaborate with, and we got pretty good. And I started getting into the placement chasing game, you know, trying to place beats with huge rappers and vocal artists. I had some success. I landed a few big opportunities. Lil Uzi Vert used a beat that I worked on. Nino Breeze used a beat that I worked on, which led to me signing a release agreement with Maybach Music, that's the label that Rick Ross owns. I would try to repeat this process, and a lot of times I found that I got stuck relying on other people for my music to see the light of day. And I feel like with as much time as I was spending producing, I mean, I was churning out beats like every single day and sending these beats out for placements. And I think it just got to a point where I started feeling like I wasn't seeing enough of my music hit the light of day and actually, go out into the world. So, as I said, I'm a teacher, and one thing that I do at school is I would always play like the YouTube live, like the Lo-Fi Girl YouTube live streams and stuff like that. And I would play them in my classroom because it would really chill my kids out, and they would, it would help them focus and complete their work. So one day, all of a sudden, I was just like, dude, I have everything I need to sit down and make lo-fi like as soon as I get home. Like I could do this right now. I have all the knowledge and the equipment that I need to do so. So I pretty much just went home and started doing it, and I loved it because now I was in control. And if I wanted to release a beat, I was just going to release a beat on DistroKid, or send it to labels, or whatever we like to do. But it just more of my music was able to see the light of day, and that just became so fulfilling for me. And here we are.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating what you said about your success with making hip hop beats and things like that. Like that's the dream for so many people, and the fact that you were able to get those placements, it's really encouraging to just hear that. Someone in the lo-fi scene also had a little bit of success in other genres too beforehand.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I just wanted to be able to have more control over my music in the end, and so I still want to do that and make beats for rappers, but lo-fi, I tend to turn to it more quickly just because I know I can make something and do whatever I want with it.
Yeah, I suppose it's having that freedom to make whatever you want with the lo-fi. You're not under the pressure that I have to make this specific genre, this specific style. And now as lo-fi, I see, is starting to expand a little bit more, and not so much just the simple sleepy lo-fi girl beats. People are having this newfound sense of freedom, just being able to make whatever they want to, whenever they want to. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So then there's this little sort of subgenre in lo-fi that a lot of people have been experimenting with. The terms being coined folk hop, right?
Folk hop.
Yeah, so we've been blending acoustic guitar and sort of more real drum kits and this kind of more roots style feel into lo-fi. What are your thoughts on it? And so, what do you think about lo-fi developing over time outside of the passive sort of chill background music?
Yeah. Okay. So, I love folk hop. That's pretty obvious. That's kind of what I usually produce. And then C4C kind of has really coined that term. He's a great musician. The reason I sort of do it is because folk music is actually has become my favorite genre to listen to. I'm a huge fan of Gregory Alan Isakov, the Paper Kites, Fleet Foxes, Iron and Wine. Like these artists make some of the most beautiful music that I've ever heard in my life. And so that it's obvious that my inspirations would sort of start to leak into my music. And I got to a point where I just started to want to make that my sound, was use organic instruments, banjos, acoustic guitars, electric guitars, lap steel, harmonica, like those things just started to really click. And I was like, man, I found it. This is like what I like to make. So in terms of surpassing passive listening, that is such a good question. I think that's something we're all kind of thinking about in this community. I think to surpass passive listening, we would have to do a lot of what you were just talking about. Take risks and push lo-fi past what it currently is. That could mean writing full tracks and having hip hop artists use lo-fi beats. That could mean have people sing over them. That could mean just melting genres together, with lo-fi to put it into more commercially popular genres. And I think the challenge is that in order for that to become kind of the new direction, labels, curators, and streaming platforms would kind of have to get behind that to push it past what it currently is as mood music essentially.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting what you said about the labels there, because I myself have been finding that folk hop is the genre that I'm most attracted to as well. I just enjoy sitting there, picking up the acoustic guitar and recording just simple chords and developing that with more organic instruments, as you said. Like I'll stick maybe the Celeste or some violin samples and things like that. But the labels and so on that are willing to release such tracks are few and far between. Like a lot of them are still very much stuck in either sort of jazz hop or chill hop kind of things. And so a lot of people end up just making lo-fi as sort of this editorial playlist music or whatever the labels are wanting to release. And so like this could be a limiting factor to how the genre evolves. And so do you have any sort of tips on producers who are only starting out? They're focusing on editorial playlists, they're focusing on making music for a specific sound of a label, but they're not being creative. Like what would you say to them?
I think we have to be careful with how much we're willing to change and adapt what we're doing in order to fit in a box. And I think in a way, when you're trying to like focus completely on editorials and streams, you're sort of indirectly trying to get a quick buck, I guess. You're trying to generate cash. And at the end of the day, we make music for ourselves because we love it. And that's where it all started, right? That's why we all started doing it. There comes a point where we're almost no longer making music. We're producing audio content for Spotify. And that's just not the same thing. That's a thought that I've had recently. It's like packaged to sell. So obviously we all have to play the game if we want our music to perform well and reach a lot of ears. And I'm certainly not above it. You know, I've played the game hard and have pitched to playlisters. I've done the Submit Hub thing. I've done the daily playlist thing. I've done, you know, I'm not above it. But when you still have to come back to why you're doing it in the first place and make sure that you're making music for your enjoyment. And when you mention those editorials, it's like the hard truth is if you go scroll and look at the top 10 to 15 to 20 tracks on any of those playlists, whether it be Lush Lo-Fi or Lo-Fi Beach, you'll click on these Spotify profiles and you'll wonder, like, is there even a person behind this? You know, a lot of times it's just a page with like a track, maybe 2 or 3 tracks, and that page has 500,000 monthly listeners, and there's no Instagram account or any sign that like an artist created this. And so if streaming platforms are going to go this route and sort of gatekeep these playlists, then let that be the reason why you return back to making music for yourself and just doing it because you love doing it.
Yeah, no, that's a really fascinating idea that you just said there, in that people are just making music to feed this sort of passive content that Spotify has sort of produced over the past couple of years. I've never really thought about it in that way, and that's quite eye-opening to the whole lo-fi scene at the moment, and maybe how it's keeping us prisoner. Yeah, I don't even know what to comment on that. I have to sit and spend some time pondering what you just said, because we all really need to go back to where it started, from the love of music and producing what we find beautiful and what gives us joy as well. Because if we as artists are sitting there and churning out tracks just for the algorithm or for the playlists, we're losing our artistic integrity and we're no longer actually making our art. We're making something for the whole Spotify system, which is
for the algorithm.
The whole algorithm. Yeah, it's almost like it's sort of keeping us prisoner. So yeah, thank you for your thoughts. Those are
absolutely
really insightful.
Can I jump in and say something real quick?
100%, man.
My wife and I, my wife and I recently watched a video, and I'll make sure I get a hold of what this YouTuber's name was, but he did a series for a month where he bought an iPod and cut out the algorithm out of his life. Like he cut out, you know, anything that was being fed to him, and he started asking his friends for music recommendations, and then he would purchase that music on iTunes or Bandcamp, and he would put it on his iPod, and he completely unplugged for a month, and it totally changed his life because he was no longer being influenced by the algorithm. And it inspired me, man. Like, I'm like ready to go on Facebook Marketplace and buy an iPod tomorrow and ask everybody to send me their Bandcamp links and just like sit with the music and truly engage with it. And that sort of ties into everything we're talking about. And that's where a lot of those thoughts are kind of connecting with our lo-fi community.
Yeah, yeah, that is interesting, because like I myself have entirely stopped listening to music on digital platforms with shuffle turned on, and try to be more intentional with what I want to listen to. So I will actually talk to my friends that I have, ask them what have they been listening to, ask for recommendations, and then it's almost as if you're sort of even making connections with people in the real world through music, which is absolutely beautiful. Like, it's art that helps us connect together as human beings. We can relate to each other through it, and this way, being more intentional with what we listen to and we consume in all forms of art can really have an effect on us.
I couldn't have said it better myself. That is exactly it. And we need to try our best to stay, as much as technology and AI and everything is coming and it's here to stay, we need to try to hold on to those things.
Yeah, man, thank you so much. That's beautiful insight you've brought to us.
Thank you.
So, as well as being a producer yourself, you have your label Amelia Grace Recordings, right? And so I've released with you before. You have a wonderful community with some artists that you have. And so what have you learned about this whole lo-fi industry since you started the label and worked on the other end of things as someone who's putting out the tracks for the producers?
That's a great question. It's definitely brought a lot of new perspective. So in the year and some change that I've been running Amelia Grace, I've learned how much work it is from top to bottom to respond to label subs, playlist submissions, to handle the facilitation of cover arts, contracts, royalty splits, distribution, promotion, social media. And I mean, that only scratched the surface. That's just kind of like the bubble points of like what you're required to do to run a label. And it's really taught me as a producer how much these guys running these labels that we're submitting to all the time are doing. And it's kind of helped me sort of, when I submit something, I'm just like, all right, they're going to get to it. They're going to respond to it. Because a lot of these labels, mine included, are staffed with very few people, and we've all learned that there are labels in the community that, are not doing right by people and are not doing things ethically, but you can basically be assured that most of these people are solid. They're just really, really busy and don't have a lot of people helping them. This year, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, I suppose it goes back to the fact that, we're not all just full-time music producers or label owners. It's our passion as well. And so we actually willingly dedicate our time to this because it's what we love.
Absolutely. I brought in my buddy Luffmore this year as my A&R, and that's made like a huge difference. He's the first point of contact in the emails, so he'll filter through. We know each other. I trust his ears. We've worked a lot together, so he'll kind of filter through the releases, and then he'll send them to me, the ones that he feels like fit the vision, and that him handling the first point of contact with artists and kind of serving as the first point of contact has been massively beneficial to me on the other side of things. And then he and I have kind of collaborated on adjustments to our process. So last year we released every Friday. And while that was awesome because we built up this huge catalog in just a year, us being as small as we are and in our first year of operation, we really weren't able to take those releases every single week and promote them to the best of our ability and put the budget that they deserve behind them. So a lot of people don't know this yet. Our new system is now we're kind of like going the small batch route, and once per month we release 3 to 4 tracks, together all at once. And then now we have an entire month until the next release date. So we can devote an entire month into giving the tracks one-on-one attention and put a bigger budget behind them. And that's working really well for the label right now. So, we're constantly making adjustments. People's music is important to them, and that's important to us. So,
Yeah, I suppose a lot of producers don't really realize that there's a lot that goes on the other side of things as well. I mean, you can make the track, you submit it to the label, but then the label themselves have so much to do. And then you having first-hand experience of that on the other side of things, as well as being a producer, you're able to balance things out and you have a perspective that's wider than most people would have.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it's been a rewarding thing. For sure. I enjoy getting the chance to engage with other people's music, kind of like what we were talking about before, and just try to help it be successful for them.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So, one last question then. So, as artists, right? Some of us may have imposter syndrome. We're here, we're producing our music, and we think that, hey, this is not good, I'm not good, or there's so many different thoughts can come into our heads. And so we really need to just go back to our why we started this, because the music, it can fade away and, everything's stripped away, but we really need to come back to what the heart of this all is. So, what are your thoughts on this?
That's so true what you said. I think it kind of comes back to the fact that we all deserve to create art. Art is for everybody, and it's something that we're entitled to consume and enjoy creating just by existing and being part of human culture. I have encountered imposter syndrome in many places in my life, whether it be at schools I worked at as a teacher, or, producers that I collaborated with, or artists that I've worked with, or labels I've submitted to, whatever it is. I always kind of come back to the same epiphany, and it's that it doesn't really matter what anyone else thinks. And as long as we're finding purpose, staying true to ourselves, we're finding fulfillment, and we're being respectful to our fellow artists and fellow humans and our listeners, there's no imposter about it. We're just doing what we love. So another thing is that we don't all have to try to make the biggest song in the world. We don't all have to try to make $1 million from music. That's not what it's about. So that's where we get back to our why. We do it because we love to do it, and that's it.
Yeah, it's going back to what the heart of it all is, and that's just art and music and the love and emotion that we can put into what we create as artists. And that's all that matters. Nothing else. No matter what people say, no matter what people think, no matter what we even think of what we produce. It's what we made in that moment of time, and that holds significance. Like, that's, yeah.
It does. I feel like that's been the heart of this conversation. No matter what we covered, that's kind of been what it all boils down to, and I absolutely love that.
Yeah. Well, here, man, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been fantastic to have you along and you sharing all of your wisdom and insight through your history with music and all of the different things you've experienced. But yeah, before we wrap this up, do you have any music that's coming out that you might want to share with anyone and things like that?
Yeah. I think when this video releases, yeah, you guys will probably be checking out a song called Helsinki, and that is the first waterfall release of an EP that I'm working on. It's called Honeymoon EP, and anybody who's been following my social medias may have an idea what that's inspired by, and I can't share too much about it because a certain somebody that I care about very much is probably watching this video. So I will let your imagination take you where it will. And I just want you to know, man, that I've truly enjoyed this conversation. I think it was inspiring and thought-provoking, and I love the track that you guys made on the fall compilation. I love what you do. You're great at what you do, and this podcast is an extension of that. So thank you so much for having me today, man.
Yeah, you're most welcome, and thank you as well. Likewise, everything you've produced has been absolutely beautiful. I've been going through your discography, and it's been really encouraging just to hear music produced by other people around the world, and it's the art that they make. As you said, that's what ties all of our conversation together, is that we need to go back to the root of it all, and it's just making music because we love it.
That's it, man. Appreciate
Well,
you so
here.
much.
Thank you so much, and hope you have a great day, man. All the
You
best.
too, man. Peace.